to this carbon audit data entry video. This video will show you what Agrecalc looks like and what is involved in data entry for a carbon audit, as well as also giving you tips on how to make data entry smoother. If you feel you are not yet at this stage and are instead looking for information on funding for carbon audits, then we have collated all this within our Farm Advisory Service webpage, including a video guide on funding streams available for carbon audits. And you can find this by going to the Advice and Grants and then preparing for the future page. This video will cover data entry after you have registered an account with Agrecalc. So all registration info can be found on the Agrecalc website, www.agrecalc.com, and there's a sign up page linked in the top right, or you can have a look through all the various information on their webpage first. Once you have registered on Agrecalc, you will then have a farm page. And this is where all carbon audits that you complete will be stored. So within this farm page, you will then have individual reports for the years in which you've assessed. So for example, if we then open a report, you will see you have a page where you can give it a name that will mean something to you or will give some relevance to the year in which you assessed. But more importantly, there's a box to enter your year end. So this is where you would enter what 12-month period you had used for the data that you've then entered on the subsequent pages, and this means you've got a record of what years you have carbon audited. The next step on this page is then to select the enterprises that are relevant to your business. Now please note you should select the enterprises that generate a saleable output for your business. For example, if you have grazing livestock that come onto your holding to graze, but you do not own the livestock, they would be excluded from your carbon audit, and the owner of the livestock would enter the land area that they use on your farm as seasonal grazing on their own carbon audit. Similarly, if there is a vegetable, potato or arable let, they would be excluded from your audit as you are getting a rental income for that. You're not getting a saleable output of crop that is then associated with your business. Where a livestock enterprise is applicable, once you select the enterprise, you will then be asked to enter more information. It will firstly start with a name for the enterprise, and then it allows you to select a type and a system, and there's drop-downs available to make this easier for you. If you have two very distinct livestock groups in beef or sheep, then you can add an additional group. So for example, here we've got a sucklers already in, so it may be that we want to reflect the fact that there are a significant number of purchase stock brought in for finishing, and we want to be able to keep some data entry around feed and other resources separate once we get further into the data entry. In which case you can add a group name again, select the type and system, and then for all livestock enterprises you need to select the relevant stock groups, and again there'll be a drop down that'll allow you to select, and you just purely hit the add type to see the drop down for that relevant livestock enterprise. For forage and all other crops, simply select it from the menu and then again use the add type button to select the land uses and crops that are most relevant to yourself. The selections made on this page will then pre-populate the later sections with the boxes that are relevant to your business. So a carbon audit is broken down into three main sections: land and crops, livestock, energy and waste. And it's always recommended that you enter data in this order. So now that we've selected all the enterprises on this report, then it's ready to move on to the first section. Land and crops. What data will you be asked for? Land areas, fertiliser, manure and lime applications, yields of crops, and it would also be handy to have your silage analysis to hand. The first page of land and crops will be relatively straightforward, but please do note that if you enter a seasonal land area in hectares, you must also enter the annual occupancy of that seasonal land in a percentage. The number of years the crop is in the ground is straightforward for arable crops at 1, but for grass, consider this question to be asking the average age of grass lays. Now for all farming businesses, you will get data entry boxes for woodlands and hedges, and you do not need to pre-select these on the report builder page. Woodlands will be entered in hectares, and hedges require to be entered in kilometres. So please do watch out for this, that a lot of farm records for hedges have the length noted in metres, so please duly convert this into kilometres and split your hedges as hedges younger than 30 years or hedges older than 30 years. If you wish to cross-check the total area with the total area of your farm based on your records, then you can add other land such as roads, yards and buildings, but this is not a necessity. To move through your carbon audit, you can either use the green Next button in the far right of the screen, or you can navigate using the main toolbar and simply click on to the next page from where you are now. Fertiliser and lime, there is a drop down of the various products that you may wish to add. And if you add a fertiliser product, please then either check or adjust the N, P and K values. All fertilisers and limes should be entered as a total tonnes applied to that crop or land use. And if you require more rows for fertiliser, simply hit the plus in the add column, or if you enter one incorrectly and you would like to start again, simply use the delete function. In land and crops, there are two manure pages. There are imported organic materials and manures and transferred manures. So we'll break these down one by one. So imported organic materials and manures are for materials and manures that come in from another farm or an external source. So some key things we would see on this page might be pig slurry, broiler litter, digestates, compost, things that are not generated on your home farm. Home produced manures should not be included on this page. They instead go on the transferred manures page. The difference with the transferred manures page is that you don't need to enter total tonnages like you need to on the imported page, but instead you need to apply a percentage. So for example, beef FYM, you need to tell us where that goes. So in this example, 70% went on the pasture grazing, 20% on the silage and 10% on the kale. So that adds up to 100%. And that is the main check on this page, is that your columns must total 100% so that you're telling us where 100% of the manure produced went. And you can simply select whatever columns are relevant to the manure types produced on your farm. Pesticides is the area of crops treated, not the number of treatments, and you can consult the Agrecalc guidance for more information on how to handle this page. So I mentioned yields previously, and they come in on the crop production and use page. Percentage of crop removed, there are standard figures available for this, and for an arable crop it will vary depending on whether just the grain is lifted or the grain and straw. Again, these can be found in the Agrecalc guidance. Harvested dry matter for silage should come from the silage analysis document, while for arable crops it should be converted back from the moisture content at harvest. For example, a 16% moisture content will be an 84% harvested dry matter. Harvested or forage yield should come from on-farm records, and Agrecalc will then automatically calculate the total crop production. At this point, you need to tell Agrecalc of that total crop production what happened to it. What was sold? There'll be the option of home save for seed for cereal and potato crops, or if you've fed it or used it for bedding within your livestock enterprises, you can note the total tonnage used for that purpose. At that point, Agrecalc will take all the data given so far and any opening stocks that you had at the start of the 12-month period you're assessing to calculate whether you have used everything or there's a remaining stock. This isn't a data entry field, it will calculate automatically, but it is useful for you to check that you agree with the figures that Agrecalc are saying you had remaining in stock at the end of your 12-month period. Crop use allocated to livestock. If you have livestock in your business, this page is to tell the calculator what enterprises are grazing or using the different crops and land uses. And again, you're looking for it to total 100% in the far right column of the enterprise for the land uses that are used by livestock. Biochar is a page that won't apply to many businesses, but if you do use biochar, there's the option here to enter the information regarding that. And this concludes the land and crops section. If you click next at this point, it will move you automatically into the livestock section. However, if you would rather break data entry down into more manageable chunks, you can come out of the report at any time by hitting back to your Farm Reports menu. And next time you come back into that Farm Reports page, you can then just toggle to whichever section you want to work on next using the header along the top. We will now move on to the livestock section. If you do not have livestock in your business, please skip the video to the energy and waste section. What data will you be asked for in livestock? Livestock weights, average numbers, weights and numbers of purchases and sales, numbers of deaths, a calving or lambing percentage, daily live weight gains, quantity of feed and bedding purchases, and the time that livestock spend indoors compared with outdoors. The first page of the livestock section is relatively straightforward, where you enter an opening and closing weight for the different livestock classes. And these classes will all be pre-populated based on what you selected on the report builder page. Average numbers also need entered, and please note these are over a 12-month period. Therefore, if there is a livestock class which does not remain on the farm for the full 12 months, then the average number should be adjusted accordingly. For example, male entires that may be sold at 9 months. If there's 25 of them sold, the average number will not be 25 because that would imply that all 25 are there for the full 12 months, when in this case they're only there for the 9. The data required for livestock in terms of numbers and weights is the same for beef, dairy and sheep in the main. The only difference would be that sheep asks you for an additional weight of average weight at weaning for lambs. For purchases, sales and deaths, please note where you enter a number of purchases or sales, there must also be a corresponding weight. Kill-out percentage is optional. If you have a personalised value, you can enter this. If you don't have a personalised value, then Agrecalc will assume a standard value. There are 2 additional data entry boxes for sheep and dairy enterprises. For sheep, it's the kilograms of wool produced, and obviously for dairy, it's the total litres produced in the herd. The performance page includes information such as calving percentage, lambing percentage, as well as for cattle such as beef and dairy, there are more data fields required, and average daily live weight gain is a required field for all livestock classes. This will pre-populate as you go through your audit with a standard figure. However, please do check the standard figure against sale weights and number of days to reach sale weight to confirm that that standard figure is applicable to your business type and it shouldn't be higher or lower. For sheep, you need to enter the split of singles, twins and triplets, which can be obtained from a scanning record. Manure management is the page where we tell the calculator what percentage of time the livestock spend outside versus inside. So for outside, you can also break that down into 2 categories, be that pasture and hill ground. And then for their inside time, please attribute it to a particular manure system. Please note the anaerobic digestion column is here to be used only for farms where the anaerobic digester is part of the farm business. If manure is then exported off of the farm, it's not spread on your own land area, it's exported elsewhere, you can then apply percentages in terms of whether it's 100% of all the slurry produced or whether it's 50, 40%, and you can apportion that accordingly. For example, this may be the case of a straw for dung deal. There may be a need to manure export. Purchased feeds, there's a category menu to select from first, such as whether it's forage, straws, cereals, and then depending on which category you select, you will then get a personalised feed menu to make it easier for you to find the feeds you're looking for, and please enter it as a total tonnage fed to that particular enterprise across the 12-month period. Bedding, again, there's 3 options to pick from, and it's entering a total tonnage that was used by that particular enterprise, so straw, sawdust or wood chips, or sand. Feed ration, this page will always be pre-populated. The only reason you would need to enter data on this page is if you needed to account for methane inhibitor use in beef or dairy enterprises. And this concludes the livestock section, and leaves just one section to complete. Energy and waste, the smallest section of the three. The data you will be asked for is usage of electricity, usage of red diesel, white diesel, petrol, kerosene, LPG in the main, as well as waste plastic usage and any external transport used for in-business moves. So if we first take a look at electricities and fuels, you will notice that you enter this as a whole farm usage, but you must then allocate this out across the various enterprises on the farm. Now, if you have personalised data for this allocation, then please allocate manually. If not, there is an allocate fuel use button on the far right hand side, which will allocate the fuel usage for you based on the information given previously in the audit. Please note that red diesel use should include contractors' use, and please make sure you include this even if contractors are bringing their own fuel and not using fuel out of your tank. Please note that all fuel usage is fuel or energy usage, it's in kilowatt hours or litres, it's not a financial value, but you may need to consult invoices to allow you to work back from the financial value to a litre or kilowatt hour usage. There's a second page of fuels, but again, please note that all fuels should just include farm use. We do not want domestic use or use for any diversification enterprises. If you have renewable electricity or renewable heat generated on farm, there are pages where you can enter what is produced and the total used on farm, and then again allocate that out across the enterprises. And the final page of energy and waste is a waste plastic use in kilograms, which again needs to be allocated out across the enterprises. External haulage in kilometres. Now, external haulage here is only looking to include external hauliers used for in-business moves, so such as external hauliers to transport stock to seasonal grazing or to hog wintering, but it should not include any distance travelled by external hauliers to the point of sale, such as abattoir or market. And if you wish to account for overall resource use on the farm, you can include a water use in litres. So this concludes the energy and waste section and therefore the carbon audit data entry. At this point, when you hit next, it will take you back to your main farm homepage, and at that point you can toggle into the results of the report that you've just entered and have a look through that on a whole farm or enterprise level. I hope this has helped to show you a little bit more about what Agrecalc will look like during the data entry process and allow you to be more prepared before you sit down to a computer to enter your data on to Agrecalc.